All right, the hand-wringing and finger-pointing continues among Democrats, wondering what went wrong in this election. Very similar to the reaction in the 1988 presidential election. I remember that one very well. Michael Dukakis had a big lead coming out of the convention, lost in a landslide. Democrats are left to wonder, will we ever get out of this rut? They did 4 years later with a guy who moderated his tone and the party's approach and took on some sacred cows in that party. That was Bill Clinton then, Doris Kearns Goodwin, historian extraordinaire, the leadership journey, how 4 kids became president, with us right now. Doris, we can learn that we get stuck in the moment, right? And the moment right now for a lot of Democrats is anger and recrimination and finger pointing and blaming, that they're doomed. But history shows, and we've seen it with both parties, that don't live in the moment, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the most important thing that the Democrats have to take away from this loss is that they lost the working class base. And that's been the foundation of the Democratic Party ever since FDR, but for the exception of Ronald Reagan, who got those Reagan Democrats. Yeah. And I think people have been saying, I think the working class felt invisible. They felt forgotten. In the great speech that FDR gave in 1932, he talked about that forgotten person. You know, he said it was like Napoleon, who forgot his infantry at the Battle of Waterloo and just used the cavalry, you know, the fancy cavalry. And then he said we have to deal with those people. At the same time, I think LBJ, when he won big in 1964, he said what the ordinary person want is not sort of a big debate on issues. They want to be able to take Molly and the kids on a vacation. They want to be able to have a roof on their head, a little music in the house, a little Medicare for the kids, ordinary daily life. And I think that somehow that was lost in this time, and that has to be regained. That's the most important thing.
You know what's interesting too, Doris, is when you look at some of the most successful presidents, or those who wowed and the public and the common man, if you will. FDR, who came from a lot of money, one of the richest families in the country. John F. Kennedy came from a lot of money, one of the richest families, influential families in the country. And yet they were able to do that. Donald Trump, whatever you think of him, in this outreach to average folks, whether it's serving fries at McDonald's, which, by the way, look very appealing to me, but that this is something that connects with people. And a lot of people just forget that soft touch.
No, I think you know what it was. When you think about FDR and you think about Teddy Roosevelt in particular, you're right, from very privileged backgrounds, but they were fighters. They were fighters, yes, for the ordinary man, and they had that fighting spirit. I mean, there's a lecture, a speech actually, that FDR gave in 1936 where he said, there's enemies out there who hate me, and I return that hate. I mean, it was a real fighting speech about the need to deal with the bankers and the businessmen that were taking away his New Deal programs. Teddy Roosevelt had that same pugilistic spirit that Trump portrayed. You know, he was clenched fists all the time, yelling at the people, and somehow making people feel he was on their side. That's the key to all elections. What FDR said is you've got to make people feel you're fighting for them. And that fighting spirit was evident in both FDR and Teddy Roosevelt, and I suspect that's what people felt. You know, sometimes when I heard President Trump talk about a sick society or a declining society, it just seemed like it was over the top, because we talked about the economy being everybody's in favor of this economy. It's the most wonderful in the world. But the people who were not feeling that, who in their daily lives were feeling a struggle to decide whether they could get a prescription medicine or get gas, right, or get food on the table, they didn't feel the economy was working for them. And he connected with that through the anger that he felt toward the system, that he felt he's dealing with us. He's speaking our anger. And that's the skill of a politician, and that worked this time.
You know, and it's, as you've reminded me, it's not what you know, it's what you feel, and tell other people what you feel. I always remember George Herbert Walker Bush when he was running for re-election in 1992 and kept assuring people the economy was turning around. It turns out he was right, that we were coming out of that recession a little too late for people to appreciate it, for him, and Bill Clinton came in. But I always thought the approach they took at the time was wrong, just as the Biden administration's approach to say, look at the numbers, they're good, they're getting better, you trust me on this. But average folks weren't feeling it, particularly when it came to paying more for a lot of things at the store. And his message, I don't know if this was his intention, clearly wasn't, to say it's not so bad. Almost like this, you're imagining it. Well, the hell I'm imagining it, right? And that hurt. And I wonder if it hurt the Democratic Party to state that we're well on our way. This is something you're way overstating, and the media is way overpounding. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think elitist analysts understand the economy is improving. It's getting better. The numbers are not really that bad. They're actually better. But the economy is just a word. What people feel in their daily life is what happens when they wake up in the morning, when they go to the store, when they go to bed at night, anxious about things. I mean, that's the real key, I think. You know, the really interesting thing, though, is now there's a huge Republican blowout. There was a huge Democratic blowout in 1964, and LBJ intuitively understood not to take that for granted. He went before his staff shortly after he'd won 15 million votes, the most in a long period of time. He said, you know what, get on your asses and get my program going now, because I'm going to start to lose votes. Every time you act as president, you make decisions, you decide things, and then you use up presidential capital. And by the time it's ready, I'm going to have lost a lot of these votes. So get off your asses and go. And I think that's an important lesson, because look what happened to him. He got that program through in 64, extraordinary 65, Great Society, historic legislation. But then the Civil Rights Bill passes, an historic bill. And yet that night he was melancholy because he knew he had lost the South for a generation. And then the war in Vietnam comes, the campus violence, the riots in the streets. And by 1968, Nixon is talking about a forgotten man once again. So we see these boom and busts of presidency, and so much of it is determined on both culture and economics. And nobody can take for granted either the victory they had or the loss they have. They just keep fighting and building up. That's what it should be about. Each party that loses should try and make itself better, appeal to the people better. The party who wins have to understand that they have to keep doing that if they're going to keep in power and keep that capital going. Depends on what they use that huge majority for. That's the real decision.
You don't want to get ahead of your skis, right? My dad would always tell me, Neil, stay humble, because in your case, it'll come in handy. In other words, you don't get too arrogant early on. So the best advice you have for both sides right now, we don't have a lot of time, Doris, maybe in the next 20 seconds, what would you say?
Well, I think for both sides, what you want to hope is that on the side of the Republicans, that they reach out to the Democrats. It would be great to do as Lincoln did and put some Democrats in close quarters, not just simply Republicans, so you can listen to them and hear them. And on the Democratic side, they've got to listen to the people. They've got to get out among the country and find out, what were we saying? What didn't work? We thought our policies were going to help you, but somehow there's a respect. One of the things David Brooks wrote that was so good, the culture of respect was lost for the working class.
Well put, Doris. Stick to this history thing. It is working, Doris.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.